Good afternoon. I'll start with the Magpies. A huge deal for Darcy Moore, one of the highest profile free agents on the table this year, a 6-year deal he's committed to Moore, which will effectively make him a Magpie for life. His dad, Peter, a Brownlow medalist at the club, played 172 games for the Magpies. It's one of the great stories now, Darcy doing such a great job in his own right. And Darcy reflected on that piece of history when he spoke to the Collingwood website regarding his signature this morning.
I grew up, all I ever wanted was to play for Collingwood and just run around just like my dad did. So the fact that I get to do that and now I get to do it for a few more years, it's pretty unreal and pretty surreal. And it's taken a lot of work to get to this position, and I'm 8 seasons into my career now, and it's such a long journey and it takes so much hard work. So to get to this point, it's such a big moment, and then to get my first long-term deal, it's really exciting.
It's a huge coup for the Magpies getting more signature. There's no doubt in my mind that other clubs would have been interested, particularly the Sydney-based clubs, if Darcy had gone to market. They're so hard to find defenders like Darcy Moore that just take hold of the game. In terms of the amount, I think he would have commanded about $900,000 a season in the market. I don't think that Collingwood would have paid much less than that. So you'd have to think the deal, it's safe to say, would be between $5 and $6 million over the course of that 6-year deal. Will he be the next club captain? I think there's a massive, massive chance of that now. I don't think you can guarantee that when you go to sign, but there's no doubt in my mind that Graham Wright, the Collingwood football manager, their highly regarded footy manager, is a huge fan of Darcy Moore. And I think there's big momentum now, I've already said before, for Moore to become the Pies' next captain after Scott Pendlebury. Is it a risky deal? I guess 6-year deals are off the back of the Grundy deal, which has been highly scrutinised. Having said that, Grundy's starting to play some good footy again. Darcy has had some hamstring history, but he's been pretty good in recent times. And the fact of the matter is, whether it's risky or not, the market commanded, and Darcy commanded, this type of deal. That's what it took, clearly, to get him to re-sign. Collingwood's attention will now turn to some other contracts, like De Goey's, obviously, Sidebottom, Howe, Roughhead and Elliott, who'll all need to be extended at various points this year. But I spoke to Mason Cox, actually, at a Grand Prix function last night, and he gave a very revealing insight into the vibe and feel at the Pies at the moment. They're enormously excited, the Pies, I think, re-energised by their game plan. Mason was sort of explaining to me that Craig McRae is very much a teacher and very much a people's person. And Mason was even thinking of hanging up the boots when he was in New York. He told me in the off-season that Craig McRae jumped on the phone and said, no, come back, because they've got history, McRae and Cox. I think McRae helped introduce Cox and teach him the game. So I think there's great vibes at Collingwood at the moment, and a massive coup for the club today, just in terms of the free agency marketplace and some of the discussion points for the remainder of the season in terms of the big contracts. There's obviously De Goey, Angus Brayshaw, McStay, massive interest in him. I understand that at least one Victorian club has given an indicative offer for McStay of 6 years, up to $600,000 a year, because he can play, of course, at both ends of the ground, and also Tim English out of contract. But a massive one to tick for Collingwood fans today. Darcy Moore off the market, a 6-year deal for the Magpies. One of the big questions in footy I want to tackle this morning, I'll get to Jeff Kennett's letter to members shortly regarding Cyril Rioli, but one of the big questions in footy is when Jeff's going to hand over the presidency at Hawthorn. I've got some information, detailed information, which I'll go into, on how I think the Kennett camp see this handover as playing out, and it's pretty clear to me that Jeff's not going anytime soon, in the next few weeks or even few months. There was some talk about him handing over as soon as they find a candidate. There was some talk about him handing over around the 30th of June. That's not necessarily the case. I think Jeff's probably going to be in place until their AGM at this stage, at the end of the year. There's a nominations committee in place that'll report by the 30th of June. If the board agrees to that person has to stand for election at their AGM in December. There's a process in place. Jeff clearly won't be serving as the president beyond the end of the year and the AGM. He's obviously made sure of that in the Constitution with some changes. It's a shortening of Jeff's term by a year, which technically ends his term at the end of 2023. There's a chance that he could stand down before the end of this year. There's always that possibility because there's a natural transition process they'll put in place. But the AGM, my understanding, in Jeff's view, is the appropriate forum for that handover to take place. The other issue in all this is that the members at Hawthorn directly elect the president. So regardless of who the board supports or the nomination committee supports, there's this big push from Hawks for change. I know there's a lot of politics going on in the background. The members will have to ratify the president at the AGM at the end of the year. All the board can do is recommend, and others have the right to stand. That's an important point in all this, no matter who the board recommends. So look, Jeff never committed to standing down by the 30th of June. It's a common, I think, report that goes around and all the rest of it. I think he'll probably stay at this stage until the AGM at the end of the year, and the members will have to ratify that person and have the right to put their hand up. So a lot of, I think there's sort of some not mistruths, but just some mistaken fact going on in regards to all that. And my understanding at the moment is that Jeff's not about to just hand over the reins tomorrow or the next day if they, anoint or find an appropriate person. It's a possibility, but unlikely. I think he'll stay until the end of the year. In terms of his letter to members overnight regarding the Cyril Rioli situation and story, Caroline Wilson's story, very good one in The Age on Saturday, Jeff has said that he's saddened to learn of the incidents that have both upset Cyril and his wife. They're taking the claim seriously and conducting further inquiries to see if there's other incidents affecting their First Nations players. Once those inquiries have concluded, they'll determine if any other action needs to be taken. Jeff says, I can assure you that the board and the administration will not shirk our responsibility and work through these matters. Some will demand immediate actions and answers, but given how important these matters are, the best response is a measured and responsible one. They're seeking to establish all the facts. Jeff also says, can I finally say on this matter, this is in his letter to members last night, we all want Cyril back with us at Hawthorn. I hope that we can work through that hurt he feels and make him feel welcome and safe in the Browne and Gold family again. Incidentally, Hawthorn have got a big reunion lunch in the city this afternoon where a lot of the Hawks Premiership legends will be. I caught up with John Platten, who was on the front bar this morning, but that's the latest in terms of Hawthorn. But my firm view from very well-placed sources is that Jeff's not about to stand down any time soon, and at the moment sees the AGM at the end of the year as the most appropriate forum for that to take place. COVID's going to have a big impact again on clubs this weekend. I'll start with the Bombers. Ben Rutten out of action under protocols, a household contact. Blake Carousella will take the reins for the Bombers. Of course, Essendon trying to avoid going 0-4. So bad timing for the Bombers. Having said that, Blake Carousella is clearly a very capable coach, but the truck is out of action. He's broken down this weekend, unfortunately. For Collingwood, Taylor Adams, a huge blow ahead of their clash against West Coast. Of course, they're already missing DeGoey with his suspension, so Taylor Adams is under protocols. And I revealed last night that Corey Durden at Carlton is also under protocols. He kicked 2 goals against the Tigers last week and has played all 3 games this year. The goal sneak. So you can clearly already see that COVID is having a big, big impact on clubs. Damien Hardwick was onto something. He reckons it was a joke, but he was onto something clearly at the start of the week. There's no sign at the moment. The household contacts definition is going to be changed anytime soon. What's also interesting going into winter is whether we're going to start to see recurrent or cases, new cases of people that have already had it, players that have already had it, which could compound the situation. But that's the latest from a COVID perspective today. The AFL's formally done an NFT deal. That's non-fungible tokens. They're a bit like electronic digital footy cards. It's like an image or a digital image that sits on the blockchain and can be capable of being traded. A good example is the Buddy Franklin 1000th goal. Soon, someone will own that 30, 60, 90-second NFT that'll be traded in the future, and I presume worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. I can't comment on what the trading price will be, but Buddy and the Players Association will get a portion of that deal. That was announced yesterday by Gil McLachlan when he spoke at a sports conference in the city, where the Formula One global boss also spoke, and it was a very interesting conference. I was there, but an interesting takeout was that the AFL's now done a formal deal regarding NFTs where the players and the Players Association will get a cut of those. So in the future, kids will be trading footy cards, and no doubt kids and adults will be trading the digital images of all sorts of things from a footy point of view as well. So I found that super interesting. Dustin Martin, currently visiting family in Sydney. Neil Baum gave an interesting update yesterday, basically explaining that Dusty still loves footy. His view, he will be back. It's more a matter of when, not if. So let's hope that's definitely the case. Some sources overnight also playing down any speculation or some suggestions that Dusty might head overseas for a break. I don't think he is, but that was some talk yesterday that some sources dismissed. Just from Melbourne's selection perspective, ahead of a big Thursday night game tonight, no Ben Browne. He was still under protocols up until today, so he didn't fly out yesterday, Ben Browne. So they just didn't want to take that risk, which is fair enough. And I'll just leave you with one today. It's just a whisper. The persistent view in football is when he chooses, Gil McLachlan will step down at some point in time. He's closer to the 18th hole than the 9th, or at least the 1st. And I guess the natural question becomes who would take over from Gil. It's a hard task because I think the wide view is that Gil's definitely the best man for the job and remains so. But one name that came up on my radar yesterday that the AFL might look at or is looking at is Patrick Delaney, who's the CEO of Foxtel, which might get floated at some stage. So perhaps Patrick could step into a new role. He also ran Fox Sports from 2012 until 2018. So there's a number of names popping up in that sphere, including Travis Auld and Andrew Dillon, who are at the AFL. But just one to watch also is Patrick Delaney as to whether the AFL goes after him in the future to perhaps run the AFL, because Gill does a magnificent job, but he won't be doing it forever. So just keep that name on your radar. But thanks so much for joining us for my podcast day. A huge Thursday of news, headlined, of course, by Darcy Moore's signature. We've got Thursday Night Footy. Don't miss that on Triple M. I'll be back tomorrow on Friday for all the latest footy news.